Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. Welcome to day 20. Yes, our official day 20. Earlier I put out day 19 because like I said, I took my booster shot yesterday and my reaction to it wasn't what I expected. Considering I'd done the two previous ones, of course, I had a little bit of unease, but not as I felt since yesterday and even up until this moment. So please pardon me. I'll not be able to do a visual with my face on screen. So I'm just trying to pull through doing this here. And like I say, a promise made is a promise kept. So the show just has to go on. So, like I said, welcome to day 20 of The Woman Called You Do Over January. And it's 31 days to declutter and deconstruct the mind to gain clarity. It's been an awesome 19 episodes thus far, 19 days. We've gone through the length and breadth of decluttering, personal self care. We handled the different components of self care. We've gone through choosing your battles wisely. We've gone through quite a lot of components that can help you in decluttering and deconstructing the mind to gain clarity. I'm just happy that we're now venturing into clarity itself. And the 19 was all about what mental clarity is. And like I said, when I was wrapping up, it was a short one, and hopefully this too will be short somewhat. I promised I was going to bring to us, you know, indicators to know whether at the end of the day you can check off the boxes that you don't lack mental clarity, or you might just have to face up to the fact that you lack mental clarity and choose to do something about building your mental clarity, you know. And like I said, for the 19, I said when you have mental clarity, one of the first things that you know is the fact that you are able to focus when it comes to dealing with things. You know how they say this aha moments, light bulb moments, your path. You know how the Bible says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path." You know, your path is illuminated. Nothing. You are able to weigh everything as it comes. Your mind is calm. Like I love to use the Zen language when you say you have this usa moment, for everything you do. Everything is just clear and all. But not so for everybody, sadly, you know. And whilst it's easy for you to detect when you have mental clarity, if you want to know what it's why mental clarity, you can choose to revisit the 19 if you didn't. But for those of you who watch it, it'll be easy for us to just, just push on all cylinders because we kind of have a degree of clarity on where I'm coming from, you know. So, like I said, it might be easy for you to detect when you have mental clarity and all of that. But, when you don't have mental clarity, might not be so easy to know because some of the symptoms, let me put it that way, symptoms of lack of mental clarity, some of them have their roots in like deeper mental issues. Like I said, for this series I'm not making light of the possibility or likelihood of mental illness or serious threat to mental health, but I'm just saying most of these things on the surface. But like, if you practice the techniques, you do most of these things, and you still find yourself, still feeling down in the dumps, it's always advisable for you to seek some form of help, professional help, because you might have some underlying, conditions that probably have so much to do with the way your mind is structured at the moment. So for most of the things I'm saying here, I'm assuming that you're just okay. It's just some of the things that you're having to deal with, the causes for why you have this lack of mental clarity, or a cluttered mind, or you seem to be battling engaged in battles that you don't choose wisely. If you go to the other episodes, you understand what I'm referring to. So, like I said, it's usually easier for you to detect that you have, a high degree of mental clarity and all that. But when it comes to lack of clarity, you try to look at it in a different way. You know why I say this? You might actually have somebody that has a high level of mental clarity, but because of certain, you know, things that happen, like if you can recall during the pandemic, there were so many of us, the lockdown, there's so many of us that lacked clarity on 1001 levels because we didn't know what to expect. We didn't have enough information filtering to us. We just had this pockets of news. This thing is this thing is that. So it's like everybody was in a frenzy. It was almost like this thing they call when oh, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. It was like mass hysteria. Yes, it was like mass hysteria. So many of us just lacked clarity. It was terrible. So those kind of things, yes, even the best of us, we can lack clarity when we see ourselves in such situations. So I'm talking about lack of clarity that is frequent. This is how you feel. You are forever never seeming to have any clear understanding of what you need to do, and all that. So that's the kind of lack of clarity I'm talking about, where there's no clear path to what it is you want to do. You can never seem to relax because of the constant changes you have to face all the time. I mean, the pandemic is over, but still, you can't make headway. You can't see left or from right. So that's the kind of lack of clarity, you know, like in talking about the pandemic a few moments ago, I know that it was normal for us all to feel a certain way then. But if after all of that, you still find yourself still just torn apart, then I mean, God forbid, it might get ugly, it might get worse. Because one thing lack of clarity does, the number one flashpoint is it can increase the levels of anxiety and all of that. So, in order for it not to have a debilitating effect on one's mental health, you know, it's good for us to examine the signs that might be indicators or indicative that one lacks mental clarity. One of the first things that come up as an indicator, as a flashpoint to know whether somebody lacks mental clarity is the fact that you are forever struggling with the minutest of decisions. Call it minor decisions, call it whatever you like, but you can't seem to make the simplest of decisions. You are confused. In fact, there's this thing they call brain fog. Why I wouldn't like to talk about brain fog here is because most of the time rather, brain fog has underlying mental issues. So I don't want to talk about brain fog. If perhaps we're fortunate to get, like I said, I'm still hoping to bring in a financial person to talk about financial self-care, and if I can get a hold of a medical person to talk about brain fog in detail, you know, and so we can isolate the possibility of mental health issues and all that, I would gladly do so. So I'll just let me just say air quotes for brain fog though. So I'll just put it aside. But if you're struggling with decisions, you're feeling confused. I know when I'm talking about brain fog in its loosest form now to us as laymen, when it's as if your head is cloudy, feels as if your brain is not functioning. I'm sure some of you have had that kind of experience before. You might just be, on the brink of experiencing a lack of mental clarity. And most times, another indicator is the fact that you keep on going over the same problem over and over again. You know, you see a woman rehashing things that have happened over and over again. You're feeling stuck. You feel you're not operating at your optimum capacity. And one of the flashpoints is where you see you're very, very unproductive. You seem ineffective. You who used to be so full of life, all of a sudden people wonder, what's wrong with Nene? And why is she like this? I might just be going through the throes of a lack of mental clarity. It could have been brought on by anything. It can be caused by stress. It can be caused by, I mentioned it a couple of days. I talked about overreaching. When you keep on overreaching, overcommitting, you can begin to lack clarity because you'll be paying attention on things that are not so important, and then you're leaving out things that are important, and then before you know it, everything is just jumbled up together. And one other thing it can lead to, and that's another sign of being, lacking in mental clarity, is when you're easily distracted. Yes, most people say it's an ability to multitask. And there was something I said the other time. I said, look, you're not actually multitasking, you're single tasking, and you're ending up just not doing anything. I'm telling you, you are not multitasking. You're just, it's almost like you are single taxing, because at the end of the day, you don't do everything properly. You just jump from this, you go to this, you go to the next thing. You're not able to, successfully complete anything. It can lead to you being easily distracted, and that in itself is a sign of a lack of mental clarity. Another indicator for, that one is lacking in mental clarity is when you see yourself, right, in a situation where you're constantly questioning yourself and what you are doing. I mean, this is where you see a woman constantly self-deprecating, bringing yourself down, putting yourself down. I don't want to use such words because I'm here to build up somebody. But you know the kind of words you can use when you're constantly putting yourself down. You question everything. I mean, there's what they call operating by committee. I'm sure somebody has heard that, where you want to make a decision, you have to call the whole community. You seem you act as if you are asking their opinion, but it's because you don't know what to do. You can't follow through on something. It's like you need to operate by consensus. You need to have 10 people agree with what you want to do before you can do it. If you don't ask this person, don't ask that person. Yes, I know. The word of God says in the multitude of counsel, there's safety. And I know we discussed it on Monday, but you see, where you have to keep overreaching just because you're afraid of taking that decision on your own, you're probably lacking in mental clarity, you know? And another indicator, an indication that you're lacking in mental clarity, one is lacking in mental clarity, is when you say yes to everything. Miss, I want to be liked. You say yes to everything, whether you believe it or not. You have this bandwagon mentality. I must say yes because the majority are saying yes. If I don't say yes, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a sign that you're lacking in mental clarity. They'll say, oh, you don't have a backbone. That thing of you don't have a backbone sometimes might just be simply that the person doesn't have mental clarity, lacks it, cannot take a decision. And you know why you will most likely say yes to everything? Because you're not sure what to prioritize. You don't know what's important. You don't know what's important. And if you don't know what is important, you won't be able to prioritize, and you would end up saying yes to everything, everybody. And when this happens, you begin to become stressed. And one thing that leads to a lack of mental clarity is stress. Another thing that is an indicator, or like I always like to say, an indication that you are honestly lacking in mental clarity, is when every time you feel overwhelmed by the simplest of things, and you really don't know which one to do first. You really don't know what to do first. You set off in the morning and say, okay, I'm gonna wash my clothes, I'm gonna do the dishes, I'm gonna do my hair, I'm gonna do this, do that. Then you're so overwhelmed, you don't know what to decide. At the end of the day, the dishes are not washed, the hair is not made, the clothes, the laundry is not done. Eh, 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 eh. You didn't go to the market as planned. And the thing is this, all these things I've listed out, there are things that at some point you can easily delegate. So even if you don't have anybody to delegate to, you can actually plan your time. But you see, when you'd rather just I don't know. There's this meme I've been watching, and I think it's a reel somewhere on Instagram. When there's this voiceover, and so many people keep enacting it. You know, how they enact this reels and say, I had so much to do today that I did the best thing I know how to do. I took a nap, and that's the honest truth. When it gets too overwhelming, you just say, no be me, no be me, kiki anybody, and you just lay back down. At the end of the day, nothing is done. And another indicator that one has is lacking in mental clarity, and it happens a lot, you know, amongst creatives. You actually start something creative, you start a creative project. At least I know I've had this happen to me quite a number of times over the years. And I always know to just shut down everything, and that's it. When it's like my creative juices stop flowing, I might start doing one fascinator, drop it, go to do another thing, drop it, go to I always know. So I just sit back. I just shut down because I know, like, for me at that point, I need to recalibrate, so to speak. If you remember a couple of days ago, I was talking to us about a principal, this woman, I don't know where she is now, Tina Kwashivuko, a principal she came up with. I don't know if it's original to her. I remember I saying it that day, but I know that I learned it from her when I was in uni. I think it was back in the 80s, when she said the strength of every person. I mean, a corporate woman and all that. So of course she wasn't then. There was nothing like, oh, women empowerment. That you say she was just speaking to the constituency of females. No, then she was a management person, and she said the way, the best way to follow through on anything you want to do, that you need to retreat, renew, and reemerge. So, as a creative or as anybody who is engaged in that kind of a thing, and you find that you can't finish a project, you start a project and it just crashes, you do it, you think you are doing one thing, and the next thing, everything just comes, you know, crumbling. You need to understand at that point that your mental clarity is not operating as it should. So you just begin to, you know, draw back. You begin to pull back because you know you need to give your mind a break. You need to give your mind a break. And in all honesty, you can actually cut through that confusion. You can give yourself, it's called a clear path of action only if you understand the kind of clarity your mind needs at that point. So, like for instance, for a creative, you know that you need to rest. It's just when people even suffer writer's block, they'll rest a bit. Then when they rest a bit, they look for how they can get inspiration. That's one thing. I don't want to overreach myself because that I will discuss a lot of that when we're talking about how to gain mental clarity, you know. So just imagine that you're headed somewhere. Imagine that you need to do something differently. Imagine that you need to change the situation, but the reality is that you are unable to. Then it's a red flag. It is a red flag because I tell you, as human beings, each and every one of us is wired in such a way that we're action oriented. Sometimes lack of mental clarity can actually spill over into the intimate side of things. How do you expect to have, you know, good sexual relations with your partner when you are lacking in mental clarity? It will seem as a chore whether you like it or not. To be as if then they force you to do them. Any sensitive person will know that you are not in the mix. So one thing mental clarity does is that where it is lacking, it is possible that not only your mind, your mental state will be affected, but your physical, yeah, your emotional, And even sometimes it can begin to affect you in terms of people start having, you know, some kind of illnesses that they will tell you are stress related. And one of the indicators that one is lacking in mental clarity is when you're undergoing stress. When you're undergoing stress. So just as, like I said in the other this thing, the previous episode, that mental clarity makes you feel like hey, gives you this aha moment, gives you this surge of energy, whether it's mentally or emotionally, physically, you just feel light, you feel knowledgeable, you feel as if you can take on the world. In fact, you are relaxed. That is even when you feel sexier. That is when you feel capable of doing anything. You are motivated. And that's one thing. Motivation is paramount to mental clarity. Where you are demotivated, then mental clarity is gradually going out of the window. You understand? So today, I'm just urging a woman. If you are feeling anxious, uncertain, annoyed, agitated, I can't even think of the number of adjectives I can use to describe what might be going on. You must understand one thing. More than ever, you might just begin or need to begin to seek for clarity. And when you seek for mental clarity, it goes a very long way to avoiding, they call it paralysis of the mind. For those of you that don't understand what it is, like you want to make a decision and all of a sudden you just freeze up. You freeze up, your mind is paralyzed. And when this happens, your confidence is out of the window. It is a lack of mental clarity that brings it. And if you want to avoid this kind of a thing happening, begin to embrace every possible way, technique, tip that you need to build and develop your mental clarity. And like I always say, it's easier said than done. And that's the truth, my sisters. It's easier said than done. It's not as easy, No one person, I'm here, I can't come and tell you, I've achieved complete clarity. It's not possible. Complete clarity is not achievable. If nothing else, that's lockdown in this Nigeria showed us, because the best of us were confused. But you know one thing, like I said when I started, it is a skill. It is a capability you can build. Anybody that tells you I was born with mental clarity is lying to you. Today, choose it. If you've chosen the path of pursuing mental clarity, of deciding that you want your mind to be free enough to rove, to just imagine the imaginable. Wabudu say, if you can think it, you can do it. That's mental clarity, because it has to do with thinking and then doing an actionable quality. I want you to begin to recognize, first and foremost, that clarity is an important part of your life. It is an important part of our lives. And when we choose it, then, like I said, if you've chosen it, or you choose to choose it, you can join us tomorrow. Because tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be stronger, stronger, stronger. We'll be talking about ways we can effectively gain clarity. So I hope you enjoyed today. I really wish you could see my faces, but don't worry. I'm sure I've seen all your messages, because, like I said, I'm broadcasting through StreamYard, so I can actually see everybody from the different places you are keying in from. But nonetheless, thank you very much for joining me tonight. God bless you. And hopefully we will see tomorrow. Good night.